what is up today? I am kind of dragging ass today, but like whatever. We're just gonna roll with it. And even though I'm 15 minutes late, I'm gonna still kick my shoes off and stir my lovely chocolate. Today we are actually going to be jumping on into some more of this chicken disaster as usual. And today the topic is the 1 million mile chicken. And if you clicked on this video because you don't know what the million mile chicken is, we're going to be reading about it in this book. So we're not actually reading the book. You got to go get your own copy at Polyface Shop. Here we are again with the damn Polyface in this. It's polyfaceshop.com, and it's Joel Salatin's. So I'm not getting a kickback for any of this. So it's really just to kind of go over his material, and he gets all the money from that. You might be able to get it off Amazon as well, but I would just say support that guy and just buy it straight from his website if you can. Oh my god. I know this is so fancy. But it's like a drink stir for like whiskey, because bartending experience and whatnot. And my mug is this awesome, what do you call this? Grand Canyon. My dad used to love traveling, so he went to the Grand Canyon on his motorcycle, I believe, and picked that up as a souvenir. And then when he passed away, I inherited it because Arizona is my love language. So that's that. So the chapter we're going for today is going to be covering like kind of how Joel had a run-in with somebody who tried to take him to a what you call it. They were like, "Hey, I want you to come help me out with this farmer's market that this guy wanted to do." And so when he did, he was, selling his chicken or whatever. He wanted to sell beef, but what do you call this person who's like in charge of everything? Anyways, they were like, "I'm a dictator," and we say no, basically. It was like telling him, "Hey, if you want to do beef, sorry, you can't because I said so. Somebody else is doing beef and we just don't want you here. So we want chicken and you got chicken. Good, let's sell the chicken and be done with it." Now, mind you, this was a location that was like 150 miles away. And in order for them to do the chicken, they actually had to travel out of state. I believe it was like an overnight trip. They load the chickens up at night, send them on their way. They arrive at the facility at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they get their chickens slaughtered at the USDA inspected facility because the farmers market was across state lines in Washington, D.C. So they had to use the federally inspected kitchen in order to sell the chicken. So it made for quite a fiasco, and this went on for a couple years. And at one point, Joel finds himself at this facility just out of curiosity, and he goes to get like the chickens, help get the chickens out, and he's like just muddling around, waiting, and he's kind of like engrossed, I guess, by what he sees because if any of you know Joel Salatin or follow any of his work, it's quite funny the way he talks about things because he has his own farm and he does things his way while trying to follow the regulations, but also pointing the finger and saying, those are dumb, or when people come and try to, if you haven't listened to any of the other episodes, you'll know that he's very outspoken against people basically trying to pee on his property. And he's like, no. He doesn't like to be walked all over and he's not going to take it. So he goes in, he's just kind of got this like thought in his head. He's like, I basically doubt they're going to be any better than one of my chickens are. So he's looking, he's like, completely just like, not into the way that these chickens are being slaughtered. Unfortunately, the chickens were electrocuted and then had their jugular slit in order for them to dispatch the chicken. And for Joel, it was kind of a little much, I guess you would say. Now, slitting their throat is one thing, but when they electrocute it, he explained that it shocks their autonomous nervous system, I believe is what it's called. And what happens is it stops the blood from pumping out. It just stops the heart, I guess. And what happens is that ends up causing pools of blood inside the chicken. And then when you cook the meat, it causes the bone to turn black. Now, I don't know if that has any relevance towards the taste or the quality of the meat, but from his perspective, it was not so great. So he is just kind of looking and observing and seeing, and this isn't like a large facility. The building was quite small, actually. Maybe the size of a house, I would say. 30 by 50. Yeah, it's about the size of a house. And he didn't, he was just kind of like dumbfounded, I guess, at what was happening there. And he's like, probably thinking in his head, if this, if I had a place like this on my property, we probably wouldn't be doing it quite like that. Now, he is a man who slaughters his own chickens, and he does it as humanely as possible, but he ran into one of the inspectors, and the inspector said, oh, well, I work at another facility, and your worst chicken looks better than our best chicken, or their best chicken. I don't think the guy actually ran the place. He was just saying, because he was like one of the federal, I guess, inspectors. And yeah, it's funny because when you come out saying something like that, it's kind of like, dang, dude. And we're sending our stuff here to get it processed, and they're not exactly being treated so great, I guess. Shock them and slit their throat, I guess. I don't know. I don't think I agree with the whole shocking thing. To be completely honest, I really think pew-pews are the way to go. But that's just me, and I do small animals, not large animals. So when it comes to a cow, I guess the next best thing might be, what is that, a cattle prod or whatever, where they send the rod through their base of their neck, and it's kind of similar to that. But I don't know. I don't do cows. So if you do cows, let me know, and I would be glad to hear your side of dispatching cows. So anyway, that was the quick and dirty intro to that chapter. And we're gonna scoot around a little bit. Today I actually didn't want to go through the chapter so much. And what I really wanted to do was do a little bit of sleuthing on the interwebs. So I'm gonna get on my computer. I'm gonna scoot this back a little. Yeah, share the space, sir. Ah, hello. Let's not go that way. Let's not go that way either. I have a kind of a dirty space over here because my kids come in here, and then I'm like, just trying to move my stuff out of the way. And it seems like the further I move out of the way, the further they encroach into my area and make it hula hoop town. So I guess that's having kids. So meanwhile, back at the ranch, there was an article that I was looking up. Oh no, where did my thing go? Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. I was on it. I was on it looking at my tabs, and I can't find my tab because it's already pulled up. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4 articles that I kind of wanted to do a live dive Is that what you say? Live dive, a live deep dive. Dive into them. Not articles, but topics, whatever. And I'm going to try to go in order. And I think I've got them pretty much in order. But these aren't following exactly what was written in the book, but it's following along. So it's like in tandem. It's still on topic. So if you're wondering about what the $1 million chicken, or $1 million chicken, God, that's a nice, better be a good piece of meat. The Million Mile Chicken, if you're wondering what the Million Mile Chicken was about, so the Million Mile Chicken is actually in reference to when the birds that are processed in a facility, and this kind of goes along with what Joel is saying. He's like, all right, so I was like, here's my farm, have to travel 150 miles to go to Washington, D.C. to sell my chickens at this stupid farmer's market I don't want to be at. And then, you know, in the process of getting there, he has to send his birds 200 miles out of the way. And then they have to come back to the farm. And then he goes back to the farmer's market. So these chickens are traveling like all this. Well, he could just do it at his own place, right? You send the birds live to the facility 200 miles away. They're stressing out, obviously, because you don't kill them before you leave. You send them. You send them live. They have to go alive, and they dispatch them at the facility. So once they are at the facility and they are dispatched, they go through the process of eviscerating them and taking the meat out. They take the organs out, offals, all that. They discard it. The federally inspected guy does his little like inspection checks to make sure all the chickens are nice and they don't like have anything weird going on. Looking at the livers, like taking the livers out, piling them in a little table or whatever. And anyway, long story short, they butcher the chickens. They send them on their way. They have to be refrigerated afterwards on the way back to the farm. And then after they're there at the farm, you unpacked them or left them in the refrigerated truck, whatever the situation is. If you have a refrigerated truck, I guess. You will then have to take your meat in a refrigerated truck back off onto the road. 150 miles in his case to Washington, D.C. because he lives in Virginia, Washington, D.C. and across the state lines has to use a USDA inspected facility, which is nowhere near him. This is why all this is happening in this crazy fiasco. And this is not even like the worst case of having to ship chickens so much. But these, regardless, instead of him just going 150 miles, doing all the birds in one day with like, you know, the people on his farm that help process his chickens, then he's instead, oh God, this thing wasn't even recording. Instead, he's having to do all this back and forth with the traveling. So he's added, let's see, 400 miles plus 150 is 550 miles just to get these chickens there instead of just driving to the event and then selling his chickens. So basically, he has added to the carbon cycle, added to the expenses, and added to like that basic headache of trying to get, you know, his food to someone's doorstep. So the reason this is kind of dumb is because he could have just slaughtered on farm and sold straight to the customer, but since his buddy wanted him to go and help him out, that's what the situation was. And this guy, hang on just a second. This guy, I think, held out for like 2 years doing this, and Joel is just like riding the coattails, like whatever, I'll do it. And so let me get comfortable real quick. Got stuff digging into my sides. So that's where the whole Million Mile Chicken thing comes from. Is you basically are just driving nonstop just to get chicken from point A to point B, doing all this stuff instead of just slaughtering on farm. And since he's a big advocate of um, custom slaughterhouses and stuff like that, using things that are closer instead of having to refrigerate your chickens and send them off to facilities that are so far away, there's so many like points where something could go wrong. Like in one incident with this going to this facility, the guy who was using his truck to transport the chickens hit a bump, and the truck went boop, boop, and the trailer went flying. And then this is filled with live chickens, and the chickens are inside this trailer container, and it's no longer attached to the truck. So trucks go in, and then the trailer just hits the guardrail and bounces, and it flips. And then these chickens are all over the freaking interstate. And this trooper comes over, and he was like, yo, you've got a problem on your hands. The guy's like, yeah, I need a little help. And spent 2 hours just catching chickens. And this could have been avoided if he could have just been allowed to slaughter his chickens. But even though the farmers market was 150 miles away and the USDA inspected slaughterhouse was only 200 miles away only, it just seemed a little bit redundant to add in all the extra. But it's regulation, so what are you going to do? Like, there's not much you can do. It's just dumb. It's just one of those redundant things that you just kind of have to deal with, kind of like paying your taxes. Yeah, why do we have to file our taxes every single year? Even if you don't make money, you still have to file your taxes. It's kind of weird. I don't know. They just want to check their boxes. So now I want to go dip on into this a little bit, and we're going to do some live sleuthing. Maybe I should pull this up so you guys can see it. We're gonna, let me just pull these up real quick. Oh my God, I can't fight. We're gonna be looking at this Vox Future Perfect. Vox's Future Perfect investigation, published in in-depth investigation titled "The Most Humane Farms Are Lying to You, and the Government Isn't Stopping Them." And this was published in November of 2024. So last year. It's pretty recent. And all the stuff that I was looking at, I try to get like pretty recent stuff just so it like applies more, because like often, regulations are constantly changing and whatnot. So you never know if you're like safe. Stuff is changing all the time. But let me see if I can get this pulled up for you guys, because the one that I was clicking on, it did not show up. They might have like taken the article down. You're being lied to about ultra processed foods. I was actually reading a PETA article earlier. Hey, when you like to go internet sleuthing and finding different points of view, you're reading both sides, honestly. You're reading as many sides as you can find. So I do. I read like vegan shit and PETA stuff. I listen to like the politics of both sides, because if you want to actually get a well-rounded opinion on something, then you should probably look at all arguments and then decide for yourself what like is the most sane argument, or not even argument, but like a viewpoint. I don't think I'm going to find this stupid article. I probably should have done that earlier while I was doing my little interweb looking. It says it's on page 2, but I don't see a page 2. Maybe I'll just read you guys the notes that I have so you get an idea. Page 2. Oh wait, there we are. Let me just scroll down, find it. So yeah, I pulled a couple different things to look at. I said November 24th, didn't I? I don't know. It's just November in general. Most humane farms are lying to you. So finding stuff that's like legit, sometimes it's fucking hard. All right. Since we're kind of like not doing this the same way I normally do, which is I just kind of basically tell you the key points of the chapter and then we just move on from there. This is maybe just going to have to be an experimental episode because I'm not able to get into what I'm trying to get into. They freaking blocked me because you have to have a membership, and I'm not going to waste my time signing up for a membership. I just want to read an article, and since I can't do that, I'm going to go over to ChatGPT, and y'all are free to fact check me because I am just going to read the notes from ChatGPT since it won't show me the actual freaking article. So what we're going to put in, and this is a great way to find information, but you do have to fact check yourself or have ChatGPT show you like citations for stuff because otherwise it's going to freaking lie to you. So I'm going to say, give me the highlights of the box article, and hopefully it gives me the real information. And I'm just going to go over this with you guys. So if it is, so I'm going to put my disclaimer out there. If this is incorrect information, you're free to correct me in the comments. But I'm not able to get on the actual site and see what was written. So this is like the second best thing I can do. Haha! Sleuth. This is stuff I do in my free time. I just like get on ChatGPT and go down rabbit holes like like for hours. I would do it all day if I could. Okay, so here's the problem. The key findings that they had were misleading humane labels on the factory farms, startling undercover reporting, weak USDA oversight, certification doesn't guarantee safety, and the institutional roadblocks to reform. So I could probably tap on a couple of those. And if I don't know about something, I'm just going to read it and move on because I don't know everything, y'all. I just know some stuff, and I'm just trying to share what I do find. So the misleading humane labels on factory farms. You know what's funny? Let me just read this real quick and I'll tell you all a story. A little short story. Very short, micro, in fact. Okay, so many large-scale producers of poultry, like foster farms, prominently advertise humane-sounding terms such as free-range, cage-free, and humanely raised. But these labels are often deceptive despite packaging showing that the chickens are roaming green pastures. The birds typically never see the light of day. They don't step foot outdoors. Okay, so what I do know about this, and unfortunately, I did, this is secondhand information that I cannot confirm because how do you know something unless you've actually seen it yourself? And unfortunately, that's another thing about sleuthing around the internet is that you may be getting incorrect information. But when the chickens that are labeled free range are labeled that, it's because they will go, let's say they have this like large facility where the birds are living. The person who, or not the person, the caretakers will go and they'll lift a door open, and then the chickens are free to go out if they want to. But the problem with this is that the birds that are used for meat in the poultry industry or the egg laying, I guess I don't know if they use the same birds for egg laying. They might use leghorns, but no Cornish cross. Cornish cross are the birds that you're going to use for meat birds. And then the leghorns, I believe, is what they'll use for egg laying, but I could be wrong. They might use all kinds of birds for all I know. But anyway, if you're talking about a meat bird and you're talking about a meat bird that was cage free, organic, free range, whatever, humanely raised, whatever you want to call it. Those birds are bred to be huge, fat, lazy, meaty birds that are basically done growing their full size by like 8 weeks or something. They grow incredibly fast compared to most birds. So these birds have been bred over generations and generations and generations, out of like a set of like 7 different birds to, and there's only like 1 or 2 companies that create the Cornish cross bird. So you can't just get a Cornish cross and then make another Cornish cross from the Cornish cross. These are like extremely hybrid chickens, but the way that they've been bred to make this particular bird, they have to use a specific like lineage in order to get the Cornish cross. And since nobody else has, I guess, the recipe, the genetic recipe, then nobody makes the Cornish cross except for this 1 or 2 like people who raise them and make them. And this is the bird that you're going to find all over America, in every restaurant, every grocery store, anywhere you go. This is, I mean, even in the homesteading community, like people who raise birds for meat will typically order their Cornish cross. You cannot expect to order these birds and then have them lay an egg, like even get to laying age to lay an egg, or even expect them to mate with each other. Like these birds are so fat and lazy that they are basically like the futuristic version of us, you know, just huge, lazy, fat birds that don't want to do anything. So getting them to even mate or even live past 8 to 10 weeks slaughter date is pretty like not normal. Not I'm not gonna say possible, because I mean I've seen like a 6-year-old Cornish cross rescue bird on the internet somewhere, and that was funny. Not funny because it was a rescue, but it was funny because somebody had actually rescued a Cornish cross expecting it to live, and it did. So the joke's on me. So I'm gonna take a drink real quick. I give him a little joke. This is not actually hot chocolate. It's lit powder from Chalk Nation. If you chalk and chill, you know what I mean. Okay. So these fat meat birds, right? Super fat, super lazy. They are not gonna go run out the door and go hang out in the pasture. They don't even want to move. They're just like these are like birds that, like, if you try to tractor them, it might be all that they can do to move from one spot to the next. You're not going to be like me, where I have hybrid chickens out in my yard that will stay in the tractor. And if I decide that I want to go from that side of the yard to that side of the yard, they'll just go. They'll be happy to make the move. But the Cornish cross, man, good luck. If you have them in a tractor and you get them to move every day, I applaud you, because I think they would probably just be getting their feet ran over. My gosh, because they're so slow. But I'm not the expert. I've never raised Cornish cross, and I never plan to, because it's not a sustainable bird, in my opinion. Even if you're homesteading and you want to raise your own birds, I would suggest maybe just getting a regular big chicken, like a dual purpose chicken, so you don't have to run into having to buy your eggs every single year or your chicks every single year in order to get these huge fat meat birds. I mean, my Americana was a pretty decent size. So, I mean, you can get big birds. that don't have to be Cornish cross. So that's the thing with the whole, here they are. These are the birds that they're raising in these giant facilities, and then they just lift the door open, and if it goes and wanders out into the pasture, then they get to stick their label on there saying, "Yeah, it's a free range bird. He can do whatever he wants." Well, yeah. The funny thing is that like if you, how long do you have to leave the door open every day? Does it count if you just lift it and then shut it? It's like they had access, they didn't run out. Well, okay. So do you leave it open 24/7? And chickens are prey animals also. So um, a big predator for chickens, Ariel, at least we're going to assume that there's an enclosure around the field, the free range field, then your predator is going to be from the sky. You're looking at like hawks or eagles. I mean, I don't know if there's eagles like in every part of the country, but they'll eat a chicken. They're huge ass birds. They have like a 10-foot wingspan or something like that. They're giant. You got, if your birds are small enough, and if they're raising them only to 8 weeks, and they might be smaller birds, then you're looking at, any bird that is a predator that is large enough to snatch and grab. And hawks are not that big, and they'll go and take all your chickens in one gulp. At least our hawks are not very big here. The ones that I've seen, maybe they get large. I don't know how big they get, but I have seen was it a falcon or something? And this was like a video on YouTube that I saw. Oh, it was so sad. This person had like an enclosure, and it was kind of like, to be honest, it kind of looks like the bathroom at like the park, like one of those old stone bathrooms with like the airway at the top or whatever. It looked like that, but they had like roosting bars and no toilets. So it was an actual bathroom. That's just what it looked like. And I guess there were supposed to be chickens in there, but there were no chickens. But there were lots of chicks. And they were running around on the ground like, oh my God, It was nighttime. This huge falcon or something just like swoops in, and it just starts gobbling up one by one, just like snatching them off the ground and just eating them. And I'm like, oh my God, that sucks. It ate like 15 birds, like 15 little chicks. And I was like, how does this thing have a stomach for that? It was all of them. It ate all the little birdies. They're all dead. But yeah, we had an issue with owls coming. They wiped out like 15 of our birds in a matter of a week and a half. And I was like, how is this animal getting in? I thought it was a raccoon, and I thought it was a cat. I don't know. Finally, we saw it one night, and we're like, that guy. So we built a new coop. He did not get in there. Ha! Okay, so we're going to move on. So yeah, you've got the misleading humane labels on factory farms. And that's basically what we just talked about as opposed to like the labeling that they are required. There's not really a whole lot of oversight on it. I mean, organic, maybe. Yeah, you got to jump through some hoops to do organic. But like, if you're talking about like cage free and free range, the problem with that is that like the verbiage, I guess, the way that you state, like, it has loose terminology on what's required, because basically the person who's putting the label on is allowed to say, what they want within, as long as it doesn't become, I can't even say that, as long as it doesn't become misleading, because the whole point is that it is misleading. They basically could just put whatever they want on there as long as it doesn't violate any already set terms. So if you're going to say all natural or natural, that means that like, at least in the poultry, I believe that it was raised without hormones, I think without antibiotics, and that it was fed a natural diet and minimally processed. I think I could be wrong on those, but I think that's the four that if you put the label natural on it, then that's what it has to mean. But I mean, things like organic, uh, regenerative, and natural, whatever. Those are like 3 examples of like, those are not heavily, but they are, what would you call it? They have like a more defined, a more refined definition on what you have to do in your process of getting that label on there. With organic, I don't know what it is in poultry, but at least when you're talking about agriculture, like when you're growing crops and stuff, you have to, I think, at least be doing it for like 2 or 3 years before you can even have an organic label on that. I could also be wrong there too, because stuff changes all the time. And when I was looking it up, that's what I found. So, because I was looking to do like the regenerative farming and stuff, but I ended up homesteading instead. I found a really nice piece of land out close to here, and the guy was going to lease it to us for free. And I was like, what? He just wanted the tax break on it. So his idea was that like if we put forth a plan of like things we wanted to do, then he would let us use the rights to his land as long as like it wasn't, as long as he got a good tax exemption status from it. So, but we ended up not going with that. We ended up moving here instead, and we could do everything we want here. We still don't even use all the acreage here. Okay, so we're going to move on to startling undercover reporting. Okay, so an undercover investigator with Animal Outlook documented violent and abusive treatment. Farm workers kicking, slamming birds into crates, and even forklift runovers? What? Oh, they ran over him with a forklift. What the? Oh my God. While processing chickens at facilities claiming humane practices. Yep. Y'all be doing some dirty stuff. Man. Oh, so going back to that guy, that inspector that Joel Salatin was talking to, the FDA guy. Yeah. So he was saying that like, the birds that they typically get, they're having like not as good looking birds, because Joel's raising his birds pretty humanely, I would say. Let them run off and to the pasture and frolic about. Do whatever you want. Moving them daily, they get fresh grass every single day. Pick the bugs, whatever they want to do. And meanwhile, you have all these other facilities like mass processing these birds, and they're getting bruised up and stuff, coming back with like spots, blood spots in them and stuff like that. Could you imagine like sending these birds off that you have raised and cared for yourself because you believe in having real good food that's been raised humanely, and only to get them back and they've been tortured their last like moments in life? It's such a sad thing. Like, why would anybody even want to do that? I just don't know. People are out of their minds. So I'm very sorry for these poor little birdies, but that's the food system that we live in. Sorry if I ruined it for you. But even if you have raised your and this is one of the important reasons why you should just buy from a local farmer, because like even if Joel Salatin raises his birds in a humane way, and then he sends them off to the facility because he's selling them at a farmer's market, nonetheless, he's selling them at the farmer's market. What if that facility was beating the crap out of his birds? So it doesn't even matter that like you have taken good care of these birds. You send them to get slaughtered and they beat the crap out of them. It doesn't make any sense to me. But like they'll go in and and if you're the farmer and you're getting the birds back and then you put the label on it and you see that they're bruised and you start wondering, dude, what happened? I mean, that would piss me off. I would not stand. So like if you just go to the farm stand or whatever where they're doing their birds, and if they get their exemption for it, that's great. Then they can do their 2,000 birds or whatever it is a year, and you get a bird that has been taken care of. And if we have more people like that, lots more people selling less birds, you've solved the Chick-fil-A crisis. There we go. I think actually, didn't they have like a hormone issue? Let's look that up. Let's go for it. Let's look it up. What was the Chick-fil-A? Oh, what was it? Like conspiracy, I guess. I don't even know what to say. Okay, maybe we got to reword this. The conspiracy about labeling. Because I thought that they had like said that they were going to do they were only going to have like non-GMO or not non-GMO. They were only going to have non-antibiotic or something. Non-hormone chicken. Don't put hormones in chickens. Okay. The Chick-fil-A labeling controversy. Antibiotics in chicken. It was antibiotics. Okay. Oh, they've had a few things. Oh, Chick-fil-A, you naughty, naughty little people. Mandela effect. Yeah, that's definitely one of them. Okay, so the antibiotic use in the chicken. Chick-fil-A previously used the non-antibiotics ever label on their chicken, meaning no antibiotics of any kind were used in the raising of the animals. However, citing supply issues, the company announced in March 2024 that it would shift to using chicken raised with no antibiotics important to human medicine. What is that? This means they will still avoid antibiotics important for human treatment, but will allow animals antibiotics if necessary to treat sickness. This change sparked some criticism and backlash on social media. Yeah, I have a problem with it because Chick-fil-A is like the number one place that you should ever want to get a good tasting chicken. And that just ruins things for me. You know what I mean? Because Chick-fil-A is so good. And those of you who have never had it, like, you're missing out. Except for you're not. Because they have put antibiotics in them. So the no antibiotics ever would be a better label, I think. But when you're raising them in huge warehouses with no beaks, no feathers, then they're probably going to get sick at some point. And you wouldn't have to clip their beaks, if they were fed right. I'm just saying. When animals are healthy, they're not going to be getting like super sick and dying on you because healthy things don't go from being healthy one day and dead the next. I'm just saying. Just saying. There's like a whole, as Dan Kittredge says, there's a whole continuum. People don't just drop dead. There's got to be something wrong with them. And then when you're like, oh, well, so-and-so had a heart attack. He came out of nowhere. No, something was wrong. There was something wrong first. And then he had a heart attack and died. Things don't just break because they feel like it. They break because something's broken already. Or something's getting worn out. Okay. So since we took a dip back to the first topic, we're going to go back down and get to the weak USDA oversight. USDA oversight. The USDA's updated labeling guidelines did little to address these issues. Definitions remain vague, and verification processes are spotty or non-existent, allowing misleading claims to persist, which kind of ties back into the first thing we just said about misleading labels and how people can just slap whatever they want on it and not really mean anything by it. But I guess, like, you would think that if there was a bunch of labels coming up, like you see a lot of packages saying this or a lot of saying that, it's all just marketing, to be honest. It's just marketing. So who cares what the label really says? I think the problem is that people don't really care about doing the extra work, I guess I would say, to verify that something actually is what it is. And when they see a label that says humanely raised, they can pat themselves on the back and feel good about it because it gives them an adrenaline kick, and then they want to buy it again because they think that they're doing something good, whether they are or not, because, you know, these birds are getting kicked and ran over by forklifts. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end what the label says, because even if you raise your birds humanely, I'm sorry, but these psychos are beating the crap out of your birds, having chicken fights. Who knows? Who knows what they're doing? I mean, have y'all ever heard of like the game chickens where they'll like have like the cockfights and stuff? That stuff happens here in America. It's not supposed to, but it does. I know a guy. I know a guy who knows lots of guys. Just say that. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, certification doesn't guarantee safety. Third-party certifications, such as those from the American Humane, offer a little improvement. Standards are too lenient and abusive practices continue under the guise of certification. Yeah, because who's getting certified as humane? Is it the person raising the chicken or is it the person butchering the chicken? Because I would think that the person raising the chicken is more likely to care for them than the person who's butchering, because they're going to be inflicting the damage that ultimately ends that chicken's life, not the person who's feeding them, you know, and checking on them to make sure that they're not, you know, dying from malnutrition. So unfortunate. How did we get here? How did we get to this point where our food is on a grocery shelf and we just think it's normal to go, you know, jump in a vehicle that portals us? Uh-oh. Oh, my thing just died. Hang on. My grandpa's dead. I guess I plugged the wrong battery into the wrong hole. Ah! I hate this. This is such a pain in my butt. Your living hemorrhoid. I hate this thing. This gimbal. I guess we'll just continue here. I don't really remember what I was saying now. I was on a roll, and now my roll is over. But I am going to stick my mouse. I'm going to use my mouse because now the freaking phone is in the way. So if y'all haven't gotten your copy, go ahead and get it, and we can talk shit together, because then you'll know what I'm talking about and why we're talking about it. Ugh. Ooh. I might want to read this to you. Ugh. All right. These inspectors live by temperature. They worship thermometers. Okay. Periodically, this is like totally off topic, but I just want to read it. The whole evisceration procedure was sloppy. In our processing, we have one quality control, which is QC, person per QC person per pre-QC. I don't understand what that means, but okay. In what we call the disassembly line. In other words, if we have an executioner, a scalder dunker operator, and 2 eviscerators at the front end, we have 4 QC folks at the other end. At this federal facility, one QC person handled the output of a dozen workers. The birds went into the chill tanks with stray feathers still affixed, and I was not satisfied at all at the procedure being clean. But that apparently was okay as long as the temperature goddesses are satisfied. Temperature goddesses. Meanwhile, back at the farm. See, there you go. Firsthand. Get your copy. Don't get to see all the shady shit they're talking about. Wow. All right. Moving on. I don't know if I can't even see my thingamajig. There it is. All right. Does anybody have any questions? No. No. It's fine. Perfectly fine with me. All right. Back to this. Despite consumer concern, the article argues that true change is unlikely without stronger enforcement backed by Congress. So for many companies, this cruelty is not an act and not an occasional failure. It's a business feature rooted in the prioritizing speed, in prioritizing speed and scale over welfare. So I guess what I just read kind of like falls in line with that. It's just pack and play. That's all you got. Pack and play. Sell your chickens. Just pump them out as fast as possible. And, you know, we don't really care what gets to the plate of the dinners of the citizens of our country, as long as they're fed and they shut up and pay their taxes. And I guess all is well. By the way, this is not sweetened. So straight to the dome. So bitter. Okay, so that was that one article. And then we're going to dip on into the Animal Welfare Institute critique. Although the Animal Welfare Institute was most cited report is from 2014, it still underscores the foundational issues in meat labeling. A 2014 exclusive report found that the USDA lacks substantiation for many animal welfare claims. Only 5 out of 25 products had any supporting documentation, which itself was superficial. More recently, a 2024 AWI release criticizes the USDA's updated food label guidelines as insufficient, citing that 85% of animal welfare claims on meat and poultry lack proper backing. So, good for you guys for calling them out. Now, I don't know who the Animal Welfare Institute is, but let's just look them up. Whoa. Big ass hands. Okay. Okay, Animal Welfare Institute. Every time I wear makeup, it makes my eyeballs watery and me have the sniffles. Okay, so this is the institution that had written that article. The Animal Welfare Institute, AWI, is a US-based nonprofit organization established in 1951 by Christine Stevens. We're going to highlight her name because I don't know her. Obviously, she's probably dead. But I want to know her. So we're going to see if she has any shady shit going on. Because I like it. Shady as fuck. We're going to go and post that. Christine Stevens. All right, let's ask ChatGPT. My best friend, ChatGPT. Let's ask him who she is. Who is Christine Stevens? I love asking this question. Are there any conspiracies tied to her? Tell me the dirt! Okay. The founder of this welfare institute, whatever, that did that. It doesn't look like she was any kind of shady person. So that's good. She's very well respected across the animal welfare community for her integrity, groundbreaking advocacy, and commitment to humane legislation. She laid the foundation for federal animal protection policies, so that's cool. So this article seems to be coming from a pretty reputable source. Well, I mean, there's always the people that write for it and stuff. They all have their own opinions, and you could also have a mole. But I do support this, what they say, and they're calling out the USDA's labeling issues that they have. So don't mind me, just because I'm sleuthing around, looking things up, making sure that nobody's like run by anybody shady. I mean, I do that once in a while just to make sure. Vox thing, I didn't understand that. Why I couldn't just look at the article. But whatever. I don't know if I've ever subscribed to Vox before. But I'm pretty sure that I've seen some of their stuff. So I don't know why I couldn't look at it. It's dumb. Everybody wants a membership these days. Remember. All right, so we're going to move on. So the third thing we were going to talk about was the USDA's August 2024 guidelines update. So in 2024 of last year, so it's about a year ago at this point, they published updated guidelines to bolster the documentation required for animal raising and environment-related claims like free-range, grass-fed, and raised without antibiotics. So the publication in the Federal Register, which is in September of 2024, reiterated that the establishments must submit comprehensive documentation for label approval. FSIS, the USDA branch overseeing meat labeling, now encourages third-party certification to support these claims, as you should, although it stops short of making it mandatory, of course. So we can encourage things. Yay. We're doing our best. But, I mean, if you made it mandatory, made a lot of things mandatory, like paying taxes and building codes, shit like that. But if you made something like that more mandatory, like, can you guys all just, like, follow the same rules if you're all doing the same shit? Like, it's kind of like, if the little guy has to play the same ball game as the big guys, then I think the big guys should all have to play the same ball game as the little guys. And little guys are having kind of like a hard time getting ahead because big guys got their, on them, boot down on the neck. So, yay for the USDA for, I guess, trying, but was it enough? Let's go over to this article. Food Safety Inspection Service, FSIS, which is what we mentioned, FSIS. That's what it means, Food Safety and Inspection. Availability of FSIS guideline on substantiating animal raising and environment-related labeling claims. This website allows hunters to do da-da-da-da. Okay. Further information, contact, let's see. And then they responded to all the comments made in 2019, though. But that's like so long ago. How long has this been going on? Oh, this is like a whole freaking document with footnotes. That's nice. But in January 2025, this year, the FSIS is announcing the availability of an updated version of its guideline on documentation needed to support animal raising or environmental related claims on meat or poultry product labeling. Official statements submit this documentation to the agency when they apply for approval of labels with animal raising or environment-related claims. The updated guidelines include changes made in response to updated scientific information, FSIS sampling data, all this stuff, and other meetings with the agency stakeholders. Ugh, I hate that word when used in government. Stakeholders. Anyway, what a boring freaking article. This one's boring as hell. So we're just gonna. If you want to read this, this is a really freaking long document, and I don't want to read it. But I can pop over here in the chat section, and I will let you guys go through and read it if you want. So I'm going to put it over here in the chat section. Boop. That is the link to that article. It is long and annoying. So you're welcome. I think that this flows a little better when I'm not live sleuthing, because live sleuthing, I'm like kind of stopping and thinking and reading a lot, it looks like. I don't know. It could be interesting. Somebody's obsessed with me, maybe. So number 4 was the USDA's acceptance of self-defined labels. Okay. What does self-defined mean? That's the problem. Self-definement. Technically, the USDA allows producers to define terms like free range themselves so long as they can claim that the poultry had access to the outdoors, but not necessarily meaningful pasture. The AWI's investigation revealed that the USDA often rubber stamps these big claims without proper oversight or verification. Even when documentation is submitted, AWI found that most are scant. A brief statement from the producer is deemed sufficient without content detail. Huh. Huh. Wow. It seems like this is a recurring theme here. Why is there so much of a clamp down on people who just want to raise food, like in a good way? But then whenever it comes to, how do I say this? It's like, I think we said this last week or the week before. There's like it's almost like it's harder for small farmers to do what they need to do in order to produce a quality product. But when it comes to like a large producer, there's a shortfall of just kind of, they can skirt the rules if they want, because they've got people that what was it that we were saying the other day about the guy who had the lawyer on retainer? He's like, well, if you just had a lawyer on retainer, then you could have all these guys off your back as well. You just pay a guy to go get a guy to get off his back. That's annoying. But man, if we just had all the money in the world, we could just do whatever the heck we wanted. Huh. Oh. Wow. So I might have to go midweek and recap on some of the stories that he says in here. Ooh, he mentions the jungle. The jungle. Have you guys ever heard of the jungle? If not, you might want to look that up. This is getting more into meat rather than chicken. And since this is about the Million Mile Chicken, then you might want to just check another episode. But The Jungle by Upton Sinclair was a document or book, I believe it's a book, written in like 1906, and it was disgusting, to say the least. He was highlighting all of the nasty things that they were doing in the meat industry, and it was wild. Like, they were just like scooping meat off the floor, um, putting like dyes on rotting meat. And there was just recently, you wonder why people had scurvy, or what was it, yellow fever? What was that? Where basically people would just drop like flies because they got like food poisoning. Well, this is why, because they're just eating rotten dead meat. It's just been sitting out. It's disgusting. I don't think Joel Salatin would ever do that. I was serious. I know I said that in kind of a silly way, but it was very serious. He would never do that. The Million-Mile Chicken illustrated the artificial barriers keeping folks from acquiring affordable, cleaner, local food. None of this had anything to do with the safety. It was all bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo, paperwork, and foolishness. Probably the worst part was that the market masters were, and still are, unwilling to use their political pull to savvy to acquaint people with these issues. We're too busy making sure that all of our paperwork was filled out and that we weren't competing with another vendor. There we are. I think that one of the telltale things here also was that the farmer's market that he was at was called DuPont Circle. that might have been an eyebrow raiser, if you get my drift. And I probably wouldn't have been at that farmer's market either. Hey, I ain't touching nothing named DuPont as long as I know about it. So we are getting to the next section in this book, and I'm probably going to stop here, and we're going to take a break, maybe for a couple months, maybe for a couple weeks, as I reevaluate how I want to go about doing this. So next week on the live stream, we may just have like a free chat, or I may just go ahead and keep doing the book, but I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. We are still going to do a live stream, live at 5 on Sundays. But if you haven't gotten your copy here, it's going to be at polyfacefarms.com/shop or polyfaceshop.com. And you can grab a copy there and skip on to chapter 8, because that's where we're going to be. We're about a third of the way through this book already, I believe. And thank you guys for holding me accountable for reading my damn books in my library, because I never touch them. I get them books, and then I'm like, if the world goes to shit, I have a library that'll tell me everything I need to know. So I'm good. So it's great to have resources, but if you don't do anything with them, what good is it? But the funny thing is, this isn't really telling me anything that I need to do, like in a physical sense, but it is giving me some insights about how to question the system a little better, especially when you're like me and you like to do extra research alongside the stuff that you do come in contact with, all the content that you are looking at out there on the internet. I mean, I YouTube everything. If I want to learn something, I just YouTube. If I want to watch something entertaining, YouTube. If I just want to sometimes just want somebody to talk to me. Let's just get on somebody's like live stream, or just hear somebody just go on a freaking monologue about their homestead or whatever it is. Sometimes I like to listen to crazy stories, which, by the way, if you like Bailey Sarian, Y-Files, Mr. Ballin, or What Lies Beneath, What Creeps in the Dark, what's that one called? Oh, there's another one and I can't remember what it's called. But I'm actually going to be doing my own version of the immersive story format, telling stories about the conspiracies involved in the food system. So if you like stuff like this, that's more along the lines of whistleblowers and all the shady drama that has been happening. So like you got like Red 40, we got high fructose corn syrup, we have PFAS, the fluoride in the water. Like, dude, I have a huge list of things that I want to dig into. And I'm going to be telling dramatized versions of these stories that are based in true, but in a story format that is entertaining. And I'm planning on doing about 5 episodes or so on each topic, and it will be surrounding a whistleblower or investigator of some kind who exposed that truth. So if you want to stick around for that, stay tuned, and that will be coming out probably next month. But we want to kind of like manage our time a little better over here, because I do have kids and I have a farm, and it gets to be a lot sometimes. So just finding time to research my live streams for this book, it can be a little intense. So that's why we're going to take a break next week and reevaluate how I want to go about doing this book club, because I do enjoy doing it, and we do have a lot more to go. But I do have a lot of other projects that I want to work on too, which I think would be even more fun. So without further ado, I thank you guys for joining today. Welcome back. And next week, we will be diving into something a little bit more fun, maybe. And thanks for joining Texas Food Systems. You guys take care. And I will see you guys on the next one.